Yeah.
How you doing, Robert?
How are you?
Good, good. You're in Northern California, aren't you?
I am. Where are you?
I'm in Tahoe, but I'm based in the East Bay, Walnut Creek area.
Oh, no kidding. Well, I'm out in Fairfax,
Oh,
out in
cool.
out in kind of Western Marin. But
Oh, cool. Cool, man.
yeah, if you ever drive out to the coast, you pass by. So give me a holler.
I will. Um, we'll start pretty soon, but man, I'm dude. I love before we start. I love the book, and I feel like, dude, everybody's asked about Lester Bangs 1,000. We'll hit it, but since it's a half hour, because we get a lot of. I want to keep. I really want to talk about the book and then graze, where you work, but I want to really lean into the book, man.
Whatever you want. I'm happy to. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm a low key huckster. I mean, I'm not low key, but I'm not a
Yeah.
huckster.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I kind
Yeah.
of just enjoy chatting.
Awesome. So I had with Robert Duncan, author of Loudmouth. Also, you were editor at Creem,
Right.
and you turned down a job at Circus. I love that. Turned down being an editor at Circus. Total outlaw.
I did. I did. I thought, after being at Cream, I thought I was just bound for glory. I thought, well, I felt like Circus was a little, more teeny bopper. So, Cream
Yeah.
was more edgy and seemed cooler to me. So I thought, well, I don't want to step down, and I had this idea that I was going to be a novelist. I didn't know it would take me another 30 or 40 years to actually get the novel out. But that's what you're holding.
Well, the whole thing with which I think this book captures is rock and roll is chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no planning. I mean, Cream, it's all chaos, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I would expand that to say life is chaos.
It is, right? It's just
right. I mean, there's, I have a relative who likes to plan, not my wife, my wonderful wife, but I have a relative who likes to plan everything, and she writes everything down and says, well, we're going to do this on this day. And, and it never works out. And I remember she wanted to buy a dog many years ago. And she researched what is the, kindest, most family friendly dog. And she got this breed that wound up, biting 6 people in their apartment building. And it was just the most awful dog ever.
which, I mean, exactly, which is like some of the people you probably worked at Cream. They bit in a different way, right? Like you work with some big dogs.
Well, they were a pretty good bunch. I liked them. Barry Kramer, who was the publisher of Cream and the business guy. He would come and challenge you early on when you're working there. He would challenge you and really try to fuck with you. And I remember he came in one day, and I tend to be a very messy person. This room is nowhere near. This is my studio, so it's nowhere near as messy. But he came in and he saw my desk just piled high with papers and shit, and he took his arm and he just scooped it all off on the floor to be funny. And I'm 21 years old. Sometimes I think about, wow, what a wise guy I was.
Yeah.
So I walked around him, went into his office, did the exact same thing to his desk, scooped all his shit on the floor, and he's screaming, no, don't do it. But that was so after that, Barry Kramer didn't bite me. In fact, he respected me more. He liked me more. And that later would give me, I went from being like the copy boy, which is low man on the totem pole, to managing editor in a very short amount of time. I think partly because of that kind of thing, I could handle Barry.
Thriving in chaos, right? That's really what a lot of rock and roll is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They say Mike Klink, who produced Guns N' Roses, it wasn't his production skills. It was just that he could keep them all in the room.
Yeah, I think that always more important than technical skills. I mean, what I like about music too is it's almost always about feel. It's not about. I mean, I don't care, how many notes a guy can play, how fast. So.
And that's what did crack me up about Cream. Now that a lot of this is coming out, that we were kids getting this nice magazine with a lot of sarcasm in it.
Right.
And but it was so, a real pro magazine. You pictured a big building in New York with just office and, but you guys were just chaotic. It looked like it was just anarchy.
Yeah, when I was there, we were upstairs. We had we had a design and art office down the hall, and the editorial office adjoined the business office at the other end of the hall. And we were above, it was just a 2-story building. It was above the Birmingham movie theater. And there was, there was a hairdresser on the, and I remember one day everybody decided, myself excluded, to get permanents from the hairdresser for the.
Oh my God, perm.
Because we had gotten to be friends with her, and so I'll give you a free perm. This is when perms were kind of coming out for men. So yeah, it was just, it was a funky place, and the desks were all piled high with shit, and strange people would show up, and the workday didn't start till, as it talks about in Loudmouth, my workday didn't, I say, well, it started around noon or 1. Well, it really started around 2 o'clock. But then we'd go till 2 or 3 in the morning, Now, admittedly, there would be a break for getting drunk. But,
right. So, you talk about the perms and getting them free, and it makes me realize, like, it's almost like you're in a cashless society, it seems. And I was on the fringe of some of those things that have happened, and like, you don't have everything, but you don't pay for anything, right? It's a strange thing, right?
Absolutely. Our little Creem business cards, we could go anywhere. I say this in the book, I exaggerate a little bit, but there was many places we could go and say, hey, I'm from Creem, I might do a review of your place.
Yeah.
And can we have some free steaks and beer, and we could get them. And then eventually, of course, I'm remembering a thing where I went with Lester and maybe Eric Genheimer, but we went to a place and they quite bitterly and angrily threw us out eventually, because we were so shit-faced and we'd eaten all this steak and drank all this beer. And and of course backstage at all those venues, everybody knew Creem. You were a little bit of a celebrity in Detroit, being in Creem rock writer, which was just, again, I got there when I was 21, and so it was extraordinary.
And I was thinking about you too, because on my stream, which is a little stream, our stream, there's this guy, I don't prefer like what he's about, but I should play his band. And part of me wants to not play his band, but part of me says, and I do play his band. Did you ever just not like a guy? Because you met a lot of pricks. And did you ever just give him the zappy review, or did you ever have to say, this is good, even though I don't like this guy? It seems like Creem was you could go anywhere. So what was that about? What was that?
Yeah,
like?
I think I was, I think I was more likely to assassinate somebody I liked than
makes sense.
Somebody I didn't know, but a guy I was fans with and did one of the first articles I ever fans of, and did one of the first articles that I ever wrote for Creem was on Todd Rundgren. And then he came out with some album. Oh, I forget what it was. It was some kind of mid-career album. It seemed like late career at that point, but now he's 70 years old and still going. I was just really, I was not nice about it. And it was just like, I was trying to show off, and, I mistook some of what went on at Creem for being, you're mean for fun, but
yeah, sarcasm.
Then I got the hang of it. And, forever after, I was worried about running into Todd Rundgren.
Oh,
so if I go to a press party and he'd be there, I'd be like, oh, fuck it, we'll go somewhere else. I spent the weekend with him and BB Buell at his house, and my girlfriend, and it was up in Woodstock, and it was a cool thing for a fan to be able to do, but I was just such a little shithead.
I love it. It's a lot of energy and piss and vinegar and Creem, and just so. And I love the idea. I heard a thing. Obviously everybody wanted the Kiss articles then, so I heard you say that you would write 1 week, you'd write a bad Kiss article, 1 week you'd write a good, which is kind of what Kiss is about. You can look at Kiss from so many angles. What was that about?
Well, that was absolutely. I mean, I was after I left Cream, I was freelancing in New York. I went back to New York, which is where I had come from,
Mhm.
and I started freelancing. And I noticed people say, "You got any stories on Cream?" I mean, not Cream, on Kiss,
Yeah.
and uh, and I'd say, "Yeah, all right, I'll write a story on Kiss." And then another guy would ask for it, and I'd think, "Shit, man!" And I wasn't selling, I wasn't getting rich of being a freelancer. I was getting quite poor.
Yeah, yeah,
And
but a few free meals though. The cashless aside, free
yeah, but
perm, free perm.
I'd get some, shitty paycheck for these things. But so I wasn't really a Kiss fan. I had interviewed them a few times, and then so I did this kind of oscillating, good and bad review thing. And then one time at a Black Sabbath, or it might have just been an Ozzy press party in what was the Time Life building at the time. And you went, as you say, you went to every press party because it was free food, it was free drink, and the drink was more important at that age. Uh, Although I still love drinking, but and I was waiting on I was in line for the buffet lunch and this guy for the buffet dinner thing, and this guy Richard Robinson, who was a producer, and he also wrote for Cream, incredibly nice guy. He produced Lou Reed's first solo album before the Bowie produced thing, before the Walk on the Wild Side hit, uh, all that. And he said, "Hey, a guy called me." This is after I'd written a bunch of those Kiss articles. A guy called me and said he was looking for somebody to write a Kiss biography, and he says, "You want the guy's name?" And name and number. And so I called the guy, and we made a deal. And so then suddenly I was writing a Kiss book,
With
which
the
is
first Kiss book, I've seen that
the
book. Wow.
first Kiss book. I put it out for you. Yeah,
All right, let
yeah,
me
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my
There it is.
God.
And I actually republished it a couple years ago, because I was started getting calls about it again, and a guy wanted to do an audiobook. I said, "Well, okay, I'll do an audiobook with you, but you got to do another print book, print edition." And he was like, "Oh, I can't handle that, blah blah blah." So he bailed, and I thought, "Well, wait a second, I could do it. I
Yeah.
could, self-publish." So I did kind of a facsimile of this cover, but I didn't want to pay my old friend Michael Marks for the photos again. So I thought, well, okay, I'll change the photo. And it was so where I worked, somebody had done. I drink tea during the day, and somebody for my birthday one year did a oil painting of me in you know business attire, which I didn't wear, and Kiss makeup, more or less Gene Simmons makeup, and drinking my tea. And I thought, God, if I put that on the cover, nobody would even really
No,
know
no, no.
they think it's a Gene Simmons thing. So you can buy it.
Okay. I'm
You
gonna
can
put a
get
link
it
in
at
the
Amazon.
chat. You give me some links. I'll put links to the chat to buy that as well as Loudmouth. That's cool.
Yeah, that's Kiss by Robert Duncan on Amazon.
And
And
is the Audible available as well?
never did the Audible.
Okay.
So I did an Audible of Loudmouth. I did it myself right in this room, and it's pretty good too. And so I recommend that to people who don't like reading. I'll come over and read it to you electronically.
That's awesome. Now, do you think you should be able to say, I have a friend that I argue with this. I read the book when you listen to it on Audible, or do you have to say I listened to the book?
Well, I think at this point people can say I read the book. I,
Okay.
I don't I don't ever listen to Audible books.
I
Yeah,
love
every
it.
once in a while on a long road trip, I've done it, but
Yeah.
usually I put on music. So
So, dude, this book, I mean, out of the gate, it's it's to me like Almost Famous meets Hunter Thompson. You know what I mean? It's just,
wow, okay, I'll
I
take
don't know
it.
if I'm right. But not as out there as him, but still out there.
Yeah, yeah.
What made you go fiction? Because I love it that it's based on everything. It feels like it feels realer because it's fiction.
Well, as I was writing, first of all, I wrote it. I didn't know what I was writing. I just started writing all this stuff,
Right.
and at the end of 13 months of writing, I said, "What is this shit that I've been compulsively writing?" And I thought, well, it's kind of memoir-y. But I said, boy, if I added this and this and did that, it might have kind of an memoir-like arc. And I started writing, and I'm all about. So I started writing some new stuff, and I'm really all about flow in music or writing or anything. And I decided I didn't want to be looking over my shoulder at the facts. I didn't want somebody coming up to me and said, "Hey, that wasn't the way it happened.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't play on April 22nd. They played on April 29th." And it was like,
Oh, yeah,
I don't want
those
any of that.
guys. Yeah, yeah.
Or I didn't want to, the way I saw people and characterized them, the way I saw them was the way I saw them. It may be inaccurate. If I think this guy's a nice guy, maybe he really was an asshole or the opposite. And so I finally decided, it also let me put a fig leaf on some of the real people I did portray in the book. Although with everybody, I messed with parts of their biography. So I decided, I'm gonna make this fiction. And I got a lot of when I was peddling the manuscript, practically every editor said, why don't you just call this a memoir and it's easier to sell? And I'm like, well, because at this point it's not a memoir. It's got some other stuff going on. And I don't want to. I don't want it.
What I love about it, what going through it, and amongst other things, a lot of stuff feels like a Wikipedia entry. A lot of books are starting to feel like Wikipedia entries. It's like, this does not feel Wikipedia at all. It feels soulful, and just like, it takes you there. You taste it more than a Wikipedia entry.
Wow. I'm so excited to hear that because, when you're writing it, and it was over the course of 6 years that I wrote it. So you're just so close up to it. You're like, I don't know if this sucks or I don't know what this
Well,
is.
that's what everything great. Yeah. Like, like you think the creative police are going to come and handcuff you because this is the worst thing ever been written in music, or it's just part of the process. We all know.
Absolutely. And then you wind up getting a bunch of rejections where they tell you this is not for us. That's the stock phrase, but so you're just completely bleeding and staggering around by the time you get any kind of bite from the publisher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Someone once told me a story. They were in this thing, Chameleon Records, and the boss was yelling at a guy saying, "You need to bring me a Stone Temple Pilots." And the guy got so mad because behind his head was a cassette that said Mighty Joe Young, which was Stone Temple Pilots. They brought him just in another name. And he said no to him.
Oh, absolutely true. Yeah.
When you're young, it gets in your head and it twists you up. I think that's why, you have to have some seasoning to write a book like this.
Yeah. And I've been writing for so damn long at this point, and I had kind of took about a 30-year hiatus on writing books because I had to make a living because I had 2 kids and had to pay for them. And so it only became possible in recent years. And I don't know what I was talking about, but that's not the first time. What were we talking about?
Well, that's what this is about, being all over well, I want to get the bookends to me of this book. We're talking about Springsteen at the beginning. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you get the gangly Bruce, the one that looked like Jesus, and you're in a car with him.
Right.
And
well, the great thing was the guy who I just did a video of it. I'm doing a series of videos that are about some of the pictures that I have in my collection and some of the stuff that went on in the book. And I say, well, it's a fictionalized version of this story. And so the guy Charlie in the book who's driving the junker,
he really exists. I mean,
that was based on Peter Lochner, the guy who co-founded Pere Ubu and a Cleveland band called Rocket from the Tombs, and he was a guy he wrote for Creem, and I got to know him through Lester, and we became friends. And he was a really wild guy. I couldn't remember all the wildness that happened that day, so I brought in another. I was started thinking about another friend, this guy David Roeder, he was a songwriter. Both of them are dead, unfortunately. But Roeder was a guy who wrote songs for Blue Oyster Cult. He wrote Joan Crawford Has Risen from the Grave. And I remember my wife had told me a story of visiting David Roeder in California, where he backed up on the highway and he had poison ivy on his ass. So he was putting calamine lotion on his ass as they were driving. And so I kind of adapted that for the Peter Lochner.
These
character.
are beasts of men. Yeah, you're talking about, and were you really, like, you're showing Springsteen around with this guy in a car? Did you really do that?
Yes, we did.
You're showing it made me realize, like, you see Springsteen so pure in a way, that how many nutcases he had to have dealt with, that this guy's giving you each a bullet, like, because Clarence's book hits a little bit on, like, they went through some crazy stuff, but you're like, he really probably at that point dealt with so many weird situations with these guys.
Well, Bruce and I somehow just really hit it off. And so I said to him, hey, I got a friend in Cleveland. I said, he can give us a tour. And so Peter pulls up in his junker and I said, Bruce, you sit in the front. No. He says, you sit in the front. And he sat in the back, and it really was, he was hanging his arms over the seat. It really was like a Bruce Springsteen song. It was, so then the three of us went just to all sorts of obscure places in Cleveland that Peter knew, often related to drinking. And it was great. And he did at the end just suddenly go, rifling through his glove compartment and gave us each a 45 caliber bullet. And
the gun, I mean, a little while for Springsteen. That's Clarence's book. He goes, this stuff really did it. If you put the pieces together, like, that's great, man.
Bruce had a great time. He had a great time. It was like being out with real people. Nobody was fawning over him, because by that time people were fawning over him. He'd been on the cover of the Time and Newsweek.
Right after that. Yeah.
So he was. So I think he enjoyed it, and that's always the way I treat rock stars. I treat them like they're regular humans, and which sometimes mean I'll tease them, and it always means I'll tease them, but and I think he really appreciated that.
But at that time too, I was doing the math. In that time zone, he was jumping Elvis's fence, saying, "I'm on the cover of Time and Newsweek."
Right.
And they said Elvis isn't home. He's still jumping over Elvis's fence. So Bruce is a little bit of an outlaw. And then I love the way you end it there. You come back around in the book, and we go back there, and it's such a nice two bookends to every rock and roll thing that happens in this book.
Yeah. I really did keep that bullet for a long time. And Peter Lochner, who was called Charlie in Loudmouth, he died in his parents' house from, alcohol poisoning at the age of 24. He was just fucked up. We all drank, but there were some people that.
Yeah.
And poor Peter, and sweet guy. And so, people had died already. Lester had died too at that point, and I was writing away trying to make a living, and my wife was pregnant, and I'm like, oh man, and whenever I wanted to distract myself from the writing that I should have been doing, I would start thinking about that bullet that was in a Rolodex thing on my desk, and my desk, which was this little table in the corner. I thought, God damn it! How long do bullets last? When do they become unstable? And what if that bullet goes off and kills me, or kills Ronnie, or kills the baby? I said, oh shit! I really did get up one morning, and I went down to the Hudson River and threw it in the river. Man. And I realized later, when I was thinking about this story, I thought, oh man, it's a metaphor. I'm throwing away my past. I'm throwing away all that Peter Lochner said we should remember. He said, this is how we'll remember. Well, I was deciding that you had to get beyond your memories and grow up, I guess. Not that I've grown up, but now that little baby that was born, then she just delivered, she drove over, she lives near us. She just drove over to ask us to take care of her little newborn baby. So I got a little grandbaby now.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
surviving all that is just a feat in itself. I mean, you survived Lester Bangs. I mean, he was a writer that was a rock star to us. You know, as you read on,
Yeah.
you read, it's not just his right, you read about him like a Bukowski or a Kerouac. He was that figure.
Yeah, and I mean, he wasn't all that. He wasn't a myth yet. He had to die to become
Yeah, which I
total
guess a lot do.
mythical. But yes, Lester and I, we were out drinking, every night. And when I arrived at Cream, I was not a Cream fan. I was living in New York, and I was a real New York, stuck up New York snob. I thought everything in New York was cool. And I thought that was just a little provincial magazine,
Yeah.
out of Detroit. I said, that's not a magazine about music, or that's a magazine about Detroit. And so I didn't read it much, and I didn't, or I didn't read it at all. I would look at it in the newsstand, in the subway when I was coming home from school, and because there was one kiosk in the New York City subway system that sold Cream, and I'd go over there and check it out on the newsstand. And but when I got there, I knew Lester Bangs' name, and he and John Morthland, another great writer, picked me up at the airport in the middle of January in Detroit, and it was cold and it was bleak, and I was young kid going out on my own really for the first time, and I didn't know he was a big star, and we just got along, and we both liked to drink and carry on and be disgusting humor. And I remember hearing him one day. At first he was like, he wasn't sure about me, and he was kind of trying to fuck with me, and again, I can handle that. And but within a month or two, we became just fast friends. And I remember hearing him one day talking to the publicist from Allman Brothers, record company. What was it called? Anyways, telling that guy, saying, "Hey, I think I found somebody funnier than me," and because I was cracking him up, he cracked me up too, and he's a funny writer.
Now, I know there was some Esquire influence, but what do you think was the decision? Because as a kid, it blew my mind when I realized that Cream had funny quotes under most of their pictures. It was like a mixture of everything. And what was that? Whose decision and how did that come about?
Well, at some point I was managing editor, so I was making decisions, but I had no education. I didn't, maybe I'd read Esquire. I don't know. Lester had definitely read Esquire and was interested in it. So I'm sure it had a lot to do with Lester. And a guy like John Morthland had been interim editor for about a year before I got there. And he was a really sharp, former reporter dude. And so I'm sure it came out of that, but it also came out of, you put funny people together who like to get wild, and shit happens,
Yeah,
and
well, that's what I love about it. Like, I think everybody tries to figure everything out now. Like, even my show, I don't know sometimes why I do it, what I'm doing. Yeah. And good shit happens when you don't know what you're doing, and it's collective energy, right?
Oh, much better shit. Yeah. And when people try to kind of formulaize or, institutionalize, well, we got to do a magazine like Creem, like when it was sold to that guy in LA, and it just sucked. It's just, it's like Lennon and McCartney. It's just shit happens. These two boys ran into each other at on the streets of Liverpool. So, I mean, and I think when they try to make it institutionalize it, it's just god awful. Trying too hard is the worst sin.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like your book is just so much heart. Is a nice thread. It doesn't get it, but there's so much energy and chaos coming off the. It's very, very hyper, which I like. It's a hyper read. You know what I mean?
I'm kind of hyper. I mean, I'm always but it's funny, if you had told me that it came out in October, and I was just like, oh man, just get the thing out, and I was still confused, and I got an email from a guy, maybe a month later or something, said, hey, I'm a script writer and I'm interested in making a movie of this book, and blah blah blah, could we talk? And I'm like looking at this email, And I'm thinking, what? This is like a joke, right? This is somebody playing a trick on me, or it's a scam. It's a Nigerian prince scam or something. So I wrote the guy back, really, for real? You think you could make a book out of it? Oh, yeah, I got a whole idea. And so I talked to him the next day. So this guy's working on a script of the book. And it was kind of what you said, you know, Hunter Thompson meets Almost Famous. He was talking about it being kind of like a darker, more real Almost Famous. And
I think what it is, and Cameron Crowe did this great a lot. It's a love letter to a time. It's like a love letter to rock and roll with all the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah.
And with the biggest, most important thing, the honesty.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't suck. I think some people still think it sucks. But
everybody. I mean, great things. Whether it's Kiss, whether I don't know anything, you got to have an opinion on. I mean, it's worse when there's no opinion. When like, oh, that's cool. I mean, like look at the name, Loudmouth. It causes you to react. The beginning first few pages was Springsteen and a bullet. You're like, whoa, and I just like. These guys had to go through that same being in a car with like an offbeat character too, like Springsteen. You know what I mean? It's
yeah. Well, it's nice to hear your kind words are nice to hear. But I've heard a lot of kind words.
Yeah. You know what it is. What's your favorite part in the book? What's your favorite part?
Oh, my favorite part. I mean, I think that I like that Lester part a lot, where, it winds up, I was there when I dealt with his dead body.
Yeah.
So landlord came and said, as it says in the book, came and knocked on my door and said, I think something's wrong with Lester. And so I ran next door, and he was just laying on the couch, but he wasn't breathing anymore. So I like it. And there was it talks about it in Loudmouth, but there was a cop came and they had, we called the cops, and the cop came, and he had to wait for the paramedics, this guy, but he's a really nice guy, and he was a big music fan. And Lester hadn't been dead a half hour, and I was staying there in the apartment. It was right next to our apartment. And he came over to me at one point and said, hey, you think I could take this record? The cop said it was like an Albert Ayler record, and which it says in the book, and I think it was. And I was like, what the fuck? Why vultures are ready? But he was such a nice guy, and he had been telling me about what a music fan he was, and he was just knocked out by all the records all around the room. And he said, this guy a musician? I said, no, but and I thought, no, Lester would like to give him this record. And so I said, yeah, take it, and later a bunch of less savory people came and took stuff. But
it's beautiful, man. And there's so many, I love that. I get chills. There's so much. That's why people, if you're into this and you love this and you love rock and roll and you love the chaos, this is so beautiful, man. And I read fast because we're gonna have to do. We were gonna meet, and I wanted to be well versed, but I'm gonna go back, and I just love the beasts, all you beasts that love each other, guys that put trash cans on Iggy Pop's head. You know what I mean? You guys are just awesome, man. And thank you so much. And you're still here keeping the spirit, man.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, it's so nice to hear, and it's and who knew? You're 21 years old. Who knows that decades later there's going to be a Creem movie, and there's going to be fictionalized, Almost Famous as the Lester scene, and who knew?
Well, you probably know Cameron Crowe, the kid, would do what he was going to do either.
Right.
But I know from my time in rock and roll, I'm 51. Like you didn't know when you're in a moment, when something's special.
Absolutely.
But moments come again, like you say, grandkids. This is a new moment. You start to go, okay. You might be playing Monopoly with your family, and they're all alive at this moment. And you go, this is a moment. you start to be able to treasure moments, I think, as you get older and go, we're in one right now, and recognize it.
Exactly. And I still go out, or I was until COVID, although I got my vaxes now. So I'm kind of starting to go out. Went out like 2 nights ago and drank too much on a Tuesday night. And I thought, okay, this is both a bad sign and a good sign.
Yeah.
Life is resuming. But, I still like to go out and get wild, and I meet characters all the time, go see music, and we started doing, before the COVID, we started doing shows up we have a little backyard. We can fit about 50 people, and we started having shows in our backyard because I have so much equipment from the days when I was playing music.
Yeah.
So I have an arena system.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this in the book. One thing I understand, because I've been in bands my whole life, but being alone, you don't have to rely on other people. And there really is in writing that'd be cool to make the switch to writing from a band to just rely on yourself.
Right.
As hard as you want to work or not as hard as you work, but it all relies on you. I thought that's part of your mission statement. It's really cool.
Right. And I got tired of, I was in band since I was 12 years old, and I got tired of, just when you're getting good and you get an agent and all this, then some guy quits for some stupid reason. And so that's when I thought, well, I'll write, because I was always a pretty good writer. And, but of course, I'm a very, I'm a sociable person.
Yeah.
And so, sitting alone writing for, 12 hours it can wear on you. But there's also a certain kind of joy in just kind of disappearing into your own trance, writing trance, which is what it is.
Man, thank you so much. And I want to thank Michael for hooking us up from 3 sides. This has been great. We'll put links to Loudmouth, and read it before
I have
movie.
I have. Now, is this showing up backwards on your thing?
No, it's showing up correct. Sure.
Okay. DuncanWrites.com has links to, it has pictures from back in the day. It has press. It has links to all the different links to buy it, Audible and all that stuff. So DuncanWrites.com,
I'm going to put a link in the chat so people will see it in the chat when this airs.
Well, you are too kind. You really, you've made my day.
I'm
going to go tell my baby granddaughter.
All right. I love that.
She'll stare at me.
Well, say goodbye to everybody and hang out so I can say goodbye to you.
All right. Well, give a shout if you're ever.
I will.
In the neighborhood.